Hi and welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Simone. Today I thought I would talk about my breastfeeding journeys, talk about the triumphs, the difficulties that I've had, and also hopefully include some tips. If you're new to the channel, I have 3 children, including this little one here. He's currently 12 weeks old and he's called Micah, and I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. Yeah, so I've breastfed all of my children, the first 2 for 2.5 years each, and then obviously I'm currently breastfeeding this one now. So yeah, when I first started out breastfeeding, I didn't have a clue really about how difficult it could be, or I just thought it was going to be completely easy, and so I didn't read any books or anything like that. My son and my daughter, it was a lot easier than the first time, so please stick around for them stories, because the first story at the beginning, it was quite difficult. But I want to be totally honest with you to just let you know how I struggled and what I found worked to help me breastfeed. I went on to do a breastfeeding peer support worker course when my first son was about 9 months old, to help other people breastfeed who wanted to, because I just found that when you have that support, it makes a massive difference, and I didn't want anyone to struggle the way that I did and then to feel like a failure. So yeah, I was saying that yeah, so in 2011 when I became pregnant, I didn't really read any books or research or anything like that. I just thought that breastfeeding would come naturally. I didn't know about the benefits of it. I didn't know anything about like formula, or well, I knew obviously that you can give babies formula, but I didn't know about all the different like research or anything like that. I just went into it thinking I'm going to breastfeed and that's it. So I had quite a long labour. It was over 30 odd hours. I've got a video talking about this with some clips which I'll put a link to. And I ended up having an emergency C-section. So it wasn't until years later that I found out that if you do have any drugs or you have a traumatic birth, that it can really impact the breastfeeding journey. There is a link that I will put into an article that I read from UNICEF, which goes into how the drug that brings on the contractions can lower the milk supply, and other drugs can impact it, and obviously impact the baby with getting them to latch on. And in some instances, I think it said in that article that the baby can literally forget how to suckle at the breast. So I will put a link to that. I wish I would have known that at the time, because I just felt like it was me and I wasn't producing enough milk. I didn't realise that the traumatic birth and the drugs that I've had could impact the breastfeeding. So when I got out of theatre, I was totally out of it, and the midwife had to help the baby to latch on. And when I look back at the videos, you could just see that he wasn't latched on. He didn't have like a big mouthful of like breast. He was pretty much on the nipple. So from then, for like the first couple of days, I wasn't latching him on properly. No one was really showing me how, and I was obviously really sore with the C-section and everything. And he was cluster feeding right from the get-go. He just seemed to be constantly attached, and he was just fussing and hungry. And then I was allergic to the morphine, I think, because I was like itching all over and I was hallucinating, and I was worried that I was trying to feed him in the night, and I was worried that I was going to fall asleep and squash him or something. So the midwife took him one night and brought him back after a few hours and told me that they'd topped him up with some formula, and he was, you know, really settled. So when we got home, again, I just was on the sofa most of the time, just feeding him constantly, and the midwives that were coming were reassuring me that, you know, he was okay, and, you know, he'd lost a little bit of weight, but he started to gain it like later on in the week. And they watched me latch him on, and they said that's fine. But then I don't know what happened. I don't know if I don't know whether the damage had already been done in the hospital, because my nipples were red and sore and bleeding, and I would just tense up and be in tears every time he latched on. Like my husband would have to like brace me in a way to get, like he'd like helped me to calm down, put gloated cushions around and then get into latch on, and then I'd just have tears rolling down my face because it was just so tough. And it just got to the point where I just couldn't take it, and I asked Ryan to go to the garage in the middle of the night to get some of those formula packs because I just was struggling so much. I was trying to express and nothing was coming out, and I just felt like a complete failure. And so we gave Caleb some of the formula, and the first night he was fine, but then the next night he was really like, it seemed like he was in pain. He kept lifting his legs up to his chest, and when he was like having a poo, it really stank. And like my husband said, look, maybe it's not agreeing with him. Let's try and work through the breastfeeding if you want to. Obviously, he didn't want to force me or anything, but I'm so glad that I had the support from him, because I probably would have given up because it was just getting worse and worse, and my recovery was really slow after the C-section as well. And obviously it's your first baby, so he'd stay up with me and when I was feeding the baby and help me to swaddle him, and in the middle of the night I would wake up and express because I found that it was easier to get more milk out then. And then in the morning, like around about 6 o'clock when the baby would wake up, I would pump again, and Ryan would feed the baby the express milk. So things started to get a lot easier, and I think the expressing, especially on the one side, because I was expressing pretty much on that side while the nipple healed, so I expressed quite a lot for the first month or two, and then I got a really good breastfeeding pillow, which I'll put a link to as well. That really helped because I'm doing it now, I'm slumping over, but it really helped with my posture to sit up, and then the baby wasn't like really hanging on, because I found that I was either stooping over or I'd have him really low down, and then he'd be pulling down and be slipping onto the nipple, which was really painful. So after that, everything, the supply, it just seemed to increase week by week, and I'd say by a month everything was great, and I didn't want to quit. And yeah, I breastfed him until he was about 2.5 when I became pregnant, and he was mainly just having milk in the night by that time, and I was exhausted with being pregnant because I suffer from really bad like nausea and sickness when I'm pregnant, and plus it seemed like the milk was drying up like quite a bit. It was like more like colostrum, and like my son was saying, it was like tasted a bit salty. So yeah, it was, so the breastfeeding journey, it ended at 2.5 years, and like I said, I did train to be a breastfeeding peer support worker to help other mums, and then so I felt equipped for when I was going to have the next baby. So when I had my daughter, it was a totally different story. I'd done a lot of research into home birth and VBACs, and I went on to have a successful home birth, which I will put a link to if you want to check that one out. And from the get-go, it was just a completely different story. I managed to get her to latch on perfectly. She wasn't dozy or anything like that. Because there wasn't any issues, I didn't opt to have the injection to bring the placenta out. I had I think it's all the physiological delivery of the placenta. And so I don't know whether that had something to do with it as well, but I just felt like my milk supply, like the colostrum, my memory just went. Where was I? So yeah, with her, everything just went really well from the beginning, and just, yeah, I had no issue with any supply or anything. I didn't get mastitis like I did with Caleb, which I forgot to mention, or any engorgement. I just didn't have any issues. It was plain sailing. I would say that my nipples was a little bit sore in the first week, like just getting used to breastfeeding again, I would say, but apart from that, it was just, yeah, it was a lot easier, and she didn't lose any weight. She just kept gaining and gaining, and she just thrived. She did really well. I didn't need to give her any formula top up or anything like that, and I didn't need to express. I just found the whole experience a lot easier. And then, so then obviously when I had Micah, I felt more equipped, but with his birth, I've got video for that. I wanted another home birth, but they didn't have the staff available, so I had to go into hospital. I had a retained placenta. I didn't have any drugs or anything. Like, I didn't have any drugs with the home birth either. Even gas and air made me feel funny with my first labour, so I didn't have any gas and air or drugs or anything with my daughter, and I didn't have anything with Micah either. I just did hypnobirthing and had like essential oils. So he latched on straight away. I had a water birth, and I did have to have some of the, you know, I can't think of the name of it now, like, you know, the drip to bring on the contractions. I had a retained placenta, so I had to go into theatre and get it manually removed, and then I think they put a drip in for this stuff to make my womb contract down because I'd lost quite a bit of blood. But thankfully it didn't seem to impact my supply. He didn't lose any weight like with Neva. He just kept gaining and gaining, and he's been fine. I've not had really any engorgement, no mastitis or anything like that. Nipples was a little bit sore the first week like there was with my daughter, but apart from that it's just been really, really fantastic. But I do feel like all the research that I did and doing that course and learning from obviously all the troubles that I had in the first birth made a massive difference. Also with my daughter, I used to attend a breastfeeding support group, and I would definitely recommend one of them. It's just so nice to be around other mothers who are breastfeeding, and you can talk about any issues that you've got, and they usually have a trained person there as well who can check your latch and give you tips and help you with the latch, you know, like demonstrate and things like that. So they're really, really useful. Other tips as well, like I said, research. Definitely go to any classes if there are any at the hospital or in your community. There's lots of useful YouTube videos where they show the latch. I've got some in one of my playlists if you'd like to have a look. And I've also got a video on three simple breastfeeding positions. So if you've had the C-section as well, having support like a breastfeeding pillow can help immensely. And just being knowledgeable on what, you know, can affect breastfeeding, your breastfeeding supply. So like I said, if you've had any drugs, if you've had a traumatic birth, if the baby's got a tongue tie, identifying that. Also introducing a dummy, topping up with formula can obviously impact your breastfeeding supply as well. I will do a video on that later on. If you'd like me to do a video on that, definitely leave me a comment below and I'll make the effort to make that soon. Comparing the two last journeys to the first, it's just completely different, and my hope is that anyone who wants to breastfeed or who's struggling can get that support and have a really enjoyable breastfeeding experience, and it not be something that's, you know, like, it's so easy to feel like a failure. If only doctors or health professionals could explain the things to mums about what can cause issues with breastfeeding, and tips and information to help to make sure that the breastfeeding is enjoyable for you as a mum, and that you're aware of any issues and you're able to sort them out before it gets too much. And then, you know, especially if you want to carry on breastfeeding but you reluctantly give up. I really feel like if mums can have the support, it can just make a massive difference, and could really mean the difference between, you know, a breastfeeding journey ending prematurely when the mum doesn't want it to happen, and it's just basically because she's not had the support. Lastly, what I'd just like to say is, when I was training, one of the people said to me that breastfeeding is a learnt skill, and any mums that are watching this, if you are struggling, please don't be really hard on yourself, because it can be so tough. But there are mums and health professionals out there that can really help to support you to hopefully have a successful breastfeeding journey. I really hope you liked this video, and if you did, please can you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, then please can you subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.